All righty. Well, good afternoon and welcome. I'm Opal Elliott, and I'm a volunteer community ambassador with AARP here in Northern Virginia. And today I am broadcasting or Zooming from the historical Prince William County Historical Center in Dumfries, Virginia, just steps away, if not in Batestown. I'll be joined today by my friend and fellow community ambassador, Suba Sate, who you just met. We ask that you place all your questions in the Q&A to the right bottom of the Zoom screen. We will answer your questions at the end of the presentation. So from our earliest beginnings, AARP has championed lifelong learning. That's why AARP Virginia is thrilled to bring to you our third year of Tuesday Explorers, a lifelong learning program offered every Tuesday from January through the end of April at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for you all out there who are wonderful explorers. So for more than 60 years, AARP has been a wise friend and a fierce defender, helping individuals to ensure that their money, health, happiness, and live a long life, and that they do so with the best of ease. AARP has earned a reputation as a wise, fierce friend and defender through trusted information, tools, and advocacy designed to protect the health and financial security of older Americans and empower them to choose how they live as they age. So by promising to act as a wise friend and fierce defender, AARP is helping people who are 50 plus and their families feel confident, in control, and secure as they age. They can help you plan a trip, learn new technologies, attend a class, become informed like we're about to do today, and sometimes we just have pure fun. So I hope you will continue to take advantage of these opportunities and more. So now it's my utmost pleasure to introduce to you our guest today. Charles Reid was born and raised in Batestown. He has made several presentations about the history of Batestown, his ancestors, and the extraordinary fact that they were never slaves despite being in Virginia since the 1700s. Mr. Reid retired in February 2005 as a captain in the Dumfries Police Department after 20 plus years of service to the town of Dumfries, Virginia. Captain Reid began his career as a patrolman with the town of Dumfries, Virginia in April 1984. During his tenure, he served as a corporal, a sergeant, a lieutenant, and finally as a captain. So looking back on his career, he fondly remembers organizing the Ride to the Wall and helping the town of Dumfries, Virginia secure the American flags up and down Main Street as part of his work on the Patriotic Committee. In addition to his dedication to the department, he was an integral part of the work of the police force during 9/11 and Virginia sniper shootings. His department was also featured on the hit HBO series, The Wire. Mr. Reid also served Prince William County as a deputy sheriff from 1993 to 1996. While with the sheriff's office, he served as a fugitive investigator, transportation deputy, and at the Prince William County Courthouse, where he provided security for several nationally recognized high-profile cases to include the Lorena Bobbitt trial. He was very instrumental in getting the Dumfries Police Force and Department Association accreditation process in place. Mr. Reid has received multiple awards and commendations through his career, to include awards from the FBI, commendations from Prince William County and the House of Delegates. The mayor of Dumfries at his retirement joked that while his golf swing needed some work, Captain Reid had been a role model, not only as an officer, but also as a community servant and family man. And his passion today, he will share with you a fascinating story of Batestown. Charles, the Zoom screen is all yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is, as she said, Charles Reid. I've been involved with the community of Batestown all my life. It's an honor to speak to you all during Black History Month. I want to thank Ms. Opal Elliott again and AARP for inviting me here to share with you all the rich history of a little hamlet that we call Batestown. My topic today will be hardships to blessings. I'll start off with the history of Dumfries and the creation of Batestown. Next, I will talk about growing up in Batestown. And I will conclude my talk with the people of Batestown and historical places and accomplishments. Before I start, I want to read this little article I read. It's called Studying History Will Sometimes Disturb You. Studying history will sometimes upset you, and studying history will always make you feel proud and happy. You probably aren't studying history. Dumfries' history began in early 1690 when Richard Gibson erected a grist mill on Quantico Creek. The town of Dumfries was formally established on 6 acres of land at the head of the harbor of Quantico Creek, provided by John Gibson. He named the town after his birthplace, Dumfriesshire, Scotland. The General Assembly established Dumfries as the first of 7 townships in Prince William County. The town received its charter on May 11, 1749, making it the oldest continuous chartered town in Virginia. Dumfries was the second leading port in colonial America, receiving tobacco from the upland. It revealed New York, Philadelphia, and Boston, and was a thriving port for more than 15 years. But due to numerous factors, Dumfries peaked in size and importance in 1763. Batestown was created around 1810 when Sally McGee married John Bates. After John died, 20 years later, she married a Thornton Kendall. If you know anything about Batestown, you're going to know that they're all Kendalls and Bateses up there. I'm going to talk to you about the most important document about my talk. It's the will from John Gibson, leaving land and articles to his children by Nancy McKee. John Gibson was a merchant from Scotland. He came to Dumfries to cast his lot, I guess. This document is just so awesome. Some of the things that it says in here. He had approximately 6 kids by Nancy McKee, and it was all kinds of land. I want to say maybe 600 acres of land that they eventually got that made up Batestown at one time. It's well short of that now, but the boundaries included Harding Springs, Cabin Branch, and the mouth of Spring Branch. As I know it to be, it's Spring Branch goes way up near 234 and comes back down into Batestown, and it connects with Cabin Branch, which goes way up into the Prince William Forest Park now. It also mentioned that they were given slaves along with the land. A lot of people don't realize that back then, Virginia was one continuous state. It was not West Virginia. It mentions places like Wood County, that's in West Virginia. That's where his godson, Alexander Henderson, had a house. Also, Alexander Henderson has a house in Dumfries. It's called the Henderson House. It's right near Dumfries Elementary School, right near Town Hall. Uh, the odd thing about Alexander Henderson is, he owned slaves, and his son was Archibald Henderson, who any Marines out here know that Archibald Henderson was at one time the commandant of the Marine Corps. He ended up, not Archibald, but John Gibson gave a lot of his goods to his best friend, Robert Ferguson, who ended up selling the slaves maybe 20 years later and giving the proceeds to the kids. There's also an interesting article in here where it says 4 lots of land in Newport. At the time, Newport was one of the first names that Quantico ended up being. I'm also going to tell you, Alexander Henderson had a slave. His name was John Malvin. It's hard to talk for little seconds about John Malvin, as far as I'm concerned. John Malvin was the greatest Black man to have ever come from Dumfries. He earned his freedom after being beat in West Virginia by one of the slave owners for going to sleep with his coat near the stove because it had gotten wet because of the slave owner's brother neglected to do something, and it burned the coat, so they beat him. He came back to Dumfries, and he stayed near the Henderson house until he got his freedom, and he literally walked away from Dumfries to Cleveland. John Malvin was such a great man. He wrote a book when he was 79 years old, talking about his exploits in Dumfries. I'm just going to name you a few of the things that he did. He was a carpenter. He was an ordained preacher. He earned his the freedom for the Underground Railroad with numerous people. He was a canal boat captain, a sawmill operator. He was involved in civil rights activism. He did the instrumental in integrating seating in the churches, forming schools for African American children and adults. And like I said, I could talk forever, but if you ever get a chance, read this book. It's called North into Freedom. It's one of the best books I've ever read, and I have spoken in the past about him, but I'll repeat again. This is the greatest man to have ever come out of Dumfries, and hardly anybody knows about it. Growing up Batestown. Can't really talk about Batestown without talking about the park, Prince William Forest Park. I want to make it very clear that some of the things that I'm going to say about Prince William Forest Park, they didn't or they were not involved in some of the atrocities that happened in Batestown. Some they were. We used to go to church, which was a little union. Bill, no problem. Did homecoming, Sunday school. Living conditions, as this states, it was a sewerless, waterless place. We had outdoor toilets, not everyone, but most of everybody. We had well water, had wood stove. You would cut wood, find water for your bath, wash your clothes. We played cowboys and Indians. The way we played Cowboys and Indians, we did it with BB guns. If you shot somebody, you knew you shot them. Wasn't no cap guns or anything like that. We had a ball field, and we played, girls and boys played organized baseball games all over Virginia and Maryland, and we were very good. We tended garden. We had hogs. We fed the hogs and slaughtered them in the fall. We would fish for herrings out of Potomac. And after you did your chores, then you were allowed to go and play. We had a swimming hole. That's what we just called it, the mine. Everybody that went to that swimming hole learned how to swim. Nobody on Batestown couldn't swim, except maybe the girls. But all the boys could swim. We picked fruits and berries, wine, had juke joints, just like anybody, any other communities. And people came from everywhere to party in Batestown. Nobody locked the doors. It was a place that I can say I'm proud that I grew up in, that I wouldn't change any of the experiences from growing up in Batestown. One thing I will mention about the Pyrite Mine is that the mine shafts, some of the shafts were open, and me and a friend of mine named Wilson Thomas, we went, as kids do, we went into the entrance of that mine. It was dark, and it was wet, and had mud in it. And when I stepped into it, I slid down a little bit into the mine, and it's just like ice. And I couldn't stop, so I slid into the wall, and I knew I was going to get very close to it. And that stopped me for a little bit, and I yelled back to my buddy Wilson. I said, "Get a stick or something." And he got this long stick, thank God, and pulled me back out of that. But I surely would have died probably if he didn't come to my rescue. One of the things that I'm going to talk about the mine was, it was a article that they talked about doing the construction of Prince William Forest Park, and it mentioned Miss Annie Williams, a lady that I know who's been in, who was a midwife, Humphreys in Batestown, and it mentioned about how in 1934 she was with her kids harvesting her apples and peaches from a small orchard in Hickory Ridge in Joplin, Virginia, and that she was really ready to leave that life, and they wanted to buy her land. But I know her not to have done that. This is the church, Little Union Church. That is the pride of where we grew up at. Some of the markers recognizing history. That is one of the mines. They had several shafts up there. I had a uncle that died in that pyrite mine. He was a timberman. He would carry a canary on his side, and he walked into the mine shafts, making sure it got shored up, and making sure that there was no methane gas. Unfortunately, one day he didn't pay any attention to his canary, and they found him dead inside the pyrite mine. I also had a cousin who died in the mine. His name was Charles Reid. They were getting off, and some kind of way he slipped and fell down into the shaft, and it decapitated his head. This is a list of all of the people that worked in that mine, black and white. It's kind of unique because both my grandparents on both sides of my family worked in this pyrite mine. Getting back to the Prince William Forest Park, they had been given this land before it was a park. The Quantico Marine Corps base was being created, and Quantico said that they had enough land. They didn't want any more. And the people that lived on Hickory Ridge thought that they were going to be okay and that they wouldn't take their land. Well, my grandmother and grandfather didn't realize that the Department of the Interior was thinking about making a park near Northern Virginia. And that was eventually what had happened. And they took their land, basically condemned it. Here's a list of all of the people that lost their land. It's a lot of pages. And my grandfather lost 75 acres of prime farmland. And my grandmother, she kicked and screamed going away from the place because this is all she knew how to live. What I want you to do, look at these pictures. I want you to recognize not just words, what I'm saying, but a face. This is my grandmother who lost her land, kicking and screaming. She had to face the fact that during this time, 1934, shortly after they took the land, my grandfather had died. This is my grandfather with my grandmother at their old house site. One of the few pictures of a Black landowner's home. What you will see is 3 children that they raised from his son being killed in the Pyrite mine. And when my grandfather and his son was buried on that land. And in order for my grandmother to go visit my grandfather, they would have to pay. And she got a small house near there that was not worth anything, really. Every bit of the money that she got, she had to pay for a little half-acre house. And that was all she could do to just come by and see. Growing up in Batestown, I'm still back on point. The park, I'll repeat again, did not have anything to do with this, but the Pyrite Mine Company did a study of the water quality, and they found out that the water was poisonous. And the same water that people, including me, drink from well water. They were drinking sulfur and poison with acid. They did another study just to confirm it, and it proved the same thing. And as far as the poisons, and to this day, it's still got poison water up in Batestown. Fortunately, they don't have well water like they used to have. They've got normal city water now. I'm going to talk about the segregation management of the park. And this I will be before. The park had separate entrances for Blacks and whites. This is after people had sold their land or the land was taken from them. They couldn't go back like they normally would. The Blacks and whites relationship in Hickory Ridge was beautiful back then. They lived near each other. Everybody got along, they bartered. But for some reason, the park felt that they had to be segregated. They ended up had Black entrances to the park and a white entrance to the park. Back in June 23rd, 1960, there was an incident that happened at the park where a big fight happened. Um, the reason the fight happened, a group of white postal employees from Fairfax, they were consuming 2 kegs of beer, and they decided to oust a group of blacks that used an adjacent softball field. And words were exchanged, whereas a postal employee threw a bottle at a Negro and another shoved a small boy. The conflict escalated, and Negro inflicted several knife wounds on several postal employees. A white threw a baseball bat and hit a Negro. In all, about 350 people were involved in an uprising. After about 15 minutes, 15 state police were called to quell what they called a riot. 2 black people were arrested and 1 white male was arrested. After this incident, a lot of the old racial separation policies were thrown away, and they created a better environment for people to come to the park. I'm going to conclude with the historical places and accomplishments in Batestown. This is going to be an eye-opener for everyone. Names of the people, there's 2 people that did not grow up in Batestown, but they were very instrumental in living in Batestown and either getting married with someone from Batestown. But I'm gonna talk about the old Cabin Branch School and the Clarkson School. You saw one of the markers recognizing it. Little Union Church, again, I said the pride of our community. The old grist mill by the dam, that's hundreds of years old. It's no longer there because of flooding, but it's still got some of the pieces where you can recognize it. The old porterhouse, it's a couple of acres still there. The park has intruded on on Batestown as well. They buy up the land as people move, and the old porterhouse is sitting right in the middle of the park, and they'll never sell that land to the park. John and Mary Thomas store was up there, and their old home site. They're the people that donated the land for the church and the school. Porter Brothers Garage, back in 1940, a black-owned business and one of the largest black-owned businesses in Prince William County. Historical Bates Cemetery is up there. A lot of people didn't know that the OSS was in the end of Batestown Road, right up into the park, was the early beginnings of the CIA back in 1941. My father told me that you weren't allowed to walk up there. They had machine gun pits right there, and to this day you can still see where they were sitting at. I mentioned the old swimming hole again. Wilmer Porter, in 1962, he became the first black person voted into the municipal governing body in Virginia since Reconstruction. Miss Annie Williams, who I'm gonna mention again, she was a midwife during the 1930s. She also did an oral history for Prince William Historical Commission in 1988. Calvin Johnson was the first black police officer for Prince William County Police Department. He was the first black police officer for the town of Dumfries and the first black police chief in Dumfries, as well as the first black police chief in Prince William County. Curtis Porter, he was a past NAACP president in Prince William County. Ed Starwood, also a past NAACP president in Prince William County, and also a first black police officer for the town of Quantico, and a county advocate for justice, I might add. Claudine Porter, She was the first Black female police officer for Prince William County, and also the first Black female deputy for Bedford County, Virginia. We have a congressional record by the Honorable Thomas Davis, recognizing Louis Union Church for its community work and history. The Cole family, the largest Black landowner in Prince William County at one time. The old Dietrich House from the pyrite mine, which has been converted into a church now. And the old superintendent's house, also from the pyrite mine. It has been upgraded and still in existence as well. David Robinson, the greatest basketball player from Prince William County. He attended Louis Union Church with his mother until he began his professional career in basketball, even though they had no connection with Batestown. Murray Porter, one of the courageous four to integrate the county school teachers system. And she has a school named after her in this county as well. Claude Thomas, he was elected to the Dumfries Town Council many times. I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna talk about Claude for a second. I went to school with Claude. He was a dear friend of mine. And at his funeral, I was asked to speak for the family. I did his background history, and Claude had retired from the 9/11 bombing at the Pentagon 6 months before it happened. His whole workforce of his friends had died in that bombing. Claude was asked to come back, and he moved to Ohio for a year, and he taught the new people to do the work that he used to do as well as his friends used to do. Like I said, I can tell you that his history goes all the way back to a lady named Agnes Ballantyne, the mother of John Gibson. He was born in 1719 in Falkland, Scotland. Now I'm going to tell you about someone who did not grow up in Batestown, but eventually found his way there. I'm going to talk about this gentleman. His name is Louis Roundtree. Louis was the most decorated Marine from Moffin Point in North Carolina. Moffin Point was the area that the Marines trained in as they were being separated from the white Marines at Camp Lejeune. He followed Chesty Puller into battle at the Korean War. He ended up trying to take a hill by himself, and at the Chosun Reservoir, and he got blown off the hill by a satchel charge. He earned a Silver Star for that. He also earned a Silver Star in Vietnam when the whole regiment got ran over. Him and another American evaded the North Vietnam soldiers for about a week. They ended up finding him. He hardly had any clothes on. He earned a Silver Star for that. Along with his 2 Silver Stars, he had 4 Bronze Stars, 2 Navy Commendation Medals, and 3 Purple Hearts. This man, I met him once, and he was the most humble man I've ever seen. You never know he had won all of these awards and stuff. I read where he had taken a young lady, a movie star, on a date to the Marine Corps ball. Her name was Anita Ekberg. And I'm like, I know Anita Ekberg. And I looked until I found it. And that's him with Anita Ekberg. most beautiful movie star during the time. I was like, oh, blown away by that. But that's not where the story ends for him. He's been meeting beautiful women all his life, but let's fast forward to Batestown. He ended up coming up Batestown, and he met this beautiful girl right there. Her name was Famie Henderson. She was a knockout, and he just fell in love with her, and they got married, and they were married for 35 years. They ended up having 3 children, and Famie, she also was the treasurer for Moffin Point Marines Lady Auxiliary, chapter 22 for over 20 years. So that's one of the best stories I could ever tell you. Gwen Porter. Got to talk about Gwen Porter. She took over Gwen Washington Porter, I'm sorry. She took over for her father's career and her mother's career. She was a school teacher and also a town council member, just like her father. This is a picture by the Inside Nova of Gwen with her husband, Clyde. Clyde didn't grow up in Batestown, but he was a Dumfries Town Council member for 28 years. He also was the vice mayor 8 times and a school teacher. King Bates is mentioned in the history books for the Battle of Dumfries. King Bates is also mentioned in my family Bible that I got from my grandmother that's probably 130 to 40 years old. He sold my grandparents their first 2 acres of land on Hickory Ridge. King Bates is mentioned because they had a skirmish. The Southerners came up and shot at cannons at Dumfries, and then they would run. And this Lieutenant Wheat got lost, him and his sergeant, and they ended up not Batestown, but Hickory Ridge back in the 1800s, and they knocked on his cabin, and he opened it and allowed them in there. They slept in his bed while he slept on the floor. And Mr. Wheat was so thankful that he didn't call or yell for the Northern soldiers to get him, that he spoke well of him years after the war. And lastly, I'm going to talk about Julia Bates Price. She created the Batestown Hickory Ridge family website. After 30 years of research, in 2005, she made it a family private site with over 12,900 names, photos, and family charts. Now, it's not 12,900 people from Batestown. A lot of them are just cousins that never, but they were Bateses. So I'm pretty much finished. And in closing, there are numerous and professional citizens from Batestown that have had exemplary careers. I want to thank them. If I fail to mention them, I apologize now. But just remember one thing: falling down is an accident. Staying down is a choice. I want to thank you for your time and patience for this effort to share Batestown with you. Thank you.
Charles, thank you. We've got a few questions, and I'll share that with Opal. I'll start off the question. Could Mr. Reid repeat the name of the document you referenced? I think you referenced it at the start, Charles.
Yes, it's the John Gibson's It's John Gibson's will. And I got it somewhere over here. I don't know what I did with it. Let me see.
Well, maybe you can look for it. And then one of the other questions was, what are all the photos behind you? Are they all around for Batestown?
Those are all people from Batestown or people that did good things, like that's Calvin Johnson, that's Claudine Porter. And just showing you professional people. That's my niece, she was a nurse.
The next question we have, Charles, is how is the slave cemetery related to Batestown?
I've heard different things about that. I'm not 100% sure that anyone from Batestown was buried there. I've heard that a lady, I don't want to call her name, but that she had children in the past, and that some people said a couple of the babies were buried there. But again, like I said, I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm just going by hearsay. That's all I can think of. But I do have the John Gibson's will. It's in on record in Prince William County Court, and as well as the libraries in Prince William County.
Thank you so much. I hope that answers the question. Suba, you want to take the next one?
Yeah. One was more of, I think I missed what kind of material was mined there. One of the people asked, was it coal? And was it what was mined that poisoned the wells in the area?
Okay, the pyrite mine itself was pyrite. Pyrite is what you call fool's gold. In order to get pyrite made an abundance of things. You could use it for gunpowder, things like that. I forgot some of the other stuff, but as far as mining it, you would also get sulfur out of it, and the sulfur is poisoning. And some of the ore, as a young boy, we would walk in front of the mine because it was a Cabin Branch Creek was run right in front of it, and you could see the different colors of it. It actually looked, the only thing I could remember it looking like was like if you were to mix up the old, remember you did the old dip the eggs and the color for Easter? If you mix it all up and just threw it in there, that's what it looked like. It was nasty, and the ground was like walking, I guess, on the moon. It would, all wherever you made a step, it would go down. The dirt was weird. And sinkholes, you would play, like I said, we played down there near the pyrite mine, and they would have sinkholes and shafts going in. You go down there and it's 20-foot hole next day. And the water, like I said, you could smell it. Even, like I said, when I would wine water, you could smell it. It stinks, but it tastes good. I've not explained it to you. Water tastes good, but it stunk. You could smell the sulfur in it.
Thank you. Charles, people would love to see the whole slide deck that you brought. Can you click on some of the slides and talk about that?
Sure.
Okay, I think we talked about that one and all right, I think we discussed, okay.
Okay, the star is indication of where Batestown was in light of the Cabin Branch mine. And if you follow it on down, you'll see right there to Dumfries, where that creek is. It follows right, there is actually a road, Batestown Road, that starts right off of Route 1 and goes all the way up into Batestown. You see some more?
Yes, next slide.
Okay, this is the one I just talked about, the wheel that John Gibson left his kid. The sewerless, waterless road, I put this in here because this is what kind of motivated me when I go out and talk about Batestown. And I guess that's how I got involved with it, because I knew it was more than just a waterless and sewerless road. If you listen to what I just told you, a lot of quality people lived up there. They weren't the richest people in the world, but that's why I said falling down and accidents, staying down is a choice. These people stood up, you know, and they all have stories to tell. You know, they're hardworking, decent people, and was just a little upset about it. This is my church, my present church, Baptist Church. It's been there for 100 and something years. We had service every Sunday. It's a different church. You'll feel welcome when you come in there. And I mentioned that David Robinson and his mother came there. And I think once they came and saw how family oriented we are and friendly we are, they fell in love with it. To this day, they've got a wall in the basement, which he dedicated a lot of money to, and dedicated a bust for the church. I was instrumental in getting these two markers for the church and for the Cabin Branch School. This is the pyrite mine. This is the one, actually the one that I slid into, but it didn't look like that then. It was all tore down. All it was a hole. This would have been when my father worked it, and my grandfathers on both sides of the family. They ended up closing this mine down because they wouldn't give a 25-cent raise. And again, I met this gentleman right here, Louis Roundtree, the greatest, one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life, and he was so humble. He wouldn't talk about his exploits in the military, but if you sit and listen to other people talking, I mean, great people, just go online and look at some of the things he did. There's honor in him to me, to mention him.
Charles, is there a Batesville history website? Do you know if Bill is there a website?
Yes, there is, but it's a private website. That's the only problem. Prince William Forest Park does some things for Batestown. You can look up some of their stuff. Some of it's accurate, you know, not all of it, but some of it's accurate.
Bill, there is another question. Oh, Suba, did you want to go on? Or there was another question.
See one in the chat, Opal.
Yes.
I see one in the chat. Maybe I missed it, but how did the free blacks end up in Batestown?
Well, that's a question that a lot of people ask. And one of the things Prince William County did and the park did was Prince William Forest Park contacted Howard University, who did a study, oral history. They did 2 oral histories, asking how Black people lived back then, how they were able to stay here in spite of the laws saying that if you were free, you had to leave Virginia, and that was a very good document that they did. It's excellent. And what, 3 years ago, Prince William County did an excellent one from the University of Virginia. They did a oral history that was also outstanding. So as far as them being here, I think I want to say it started with Nancy McKee getting her kids. However, during the same week before this, the Cole family lived here. They were free Blacks in Dumfries. I don't know how to tell you. And that's why I have questions about John Malvin. Somebody taught him taught him English, or as he would say, talk pretty. And it had to be somebody from Batestown, is the way I saw it. Because there was slavery during that time in Dumfries.
Another question, Charles, is where can we view or read the entire will? Is there somewhere that we can view or read the entire will?
It's it's a library in Manassas. I can't think of the relic. It's called the relic section is what you need to find. You should be able to Google it. It pops up. Just the relic in Manassas. It'll pop up, and they have it.
Okay, and another question was, are the photos on the boards, where are the photos on the board usually displayed? I know you have them here with us today. Where are they usually displayed?
We had last year we did a program where we changed the name from Mine Road, which the poisonous mine, to back to its original name of Batestown. So we used them. There was a gazebo that was perfect for the pictures. People would just walk up to it, look at the pictures of the people of Batestown, and go by. They were my own personal ones, but I got from Judy Bates, and a lot of them were missing because people hadn't seen any of the pictures of their family, so they just took them. And I was okay with it because I had them on disc, and I could, make more.
Suba, you want to take the next couple?
This is any plans to move the private website to a public site to share the great history and legacies? I don't know if
I have passed. I would love to see that. It's not my call. It's Judy Bates' call. I'll pass that on to her because I have had friends like Miss Elliott. I wanted her to know what she was going to see, as far as the people. I shared it with her with the understanding that she, not share it with other people, and she's not the first nor the last, but I'll do that. But it's an eye-opener, I tell you. It's a wealth of knowledge there. Matter of fact, she is the one that found this article about the children, Nancy McKee.
Another question we've had, Charles, was Batestown involved in the Civil War?
I want to say yes. With the fact King Bates, they came to his house. It was more on Hickory Ridge side, but he owned land in Batestown as well. So, I don't know exactly. He said it was King Bates didn't say that. This other guy said that he lived in Hickory. You don't know. And it was definitely war going on during the time that they were up there. And like I said, it's a unique place now. It's basically a one-way in, one-way out, but you used to could go all the way through and up into 234. It's kind of weird to explain now. Since the park is there, they've got a gate across it. It's one way in, one way out.
Okay. And someone, Dr. Joe Bout, we'd like to thank him for posting the link for the relic in the Prince William County Library, Dr.
Yes.
Joe Bout. We thank you for doing that for us.
Absolutely.
For sure. Okay, Suba, someone else asked, did the community have any health issues from the contaminated water? Do you know of any?
I do. A lot of my family, to include my mother, died of cancer. We have had cancer deaths, probably 7. I had 13 siblings. It was 13 of us, to include my parents. My father didn't die of it, but my mother died of it. 3 or 4 sisters died of cancer. 2 brothers died of cancer. And there is no doubt in my mind about the poison water up there. And from what I read a while back, Trim County did a Superfund cleanup through the government, and even with that, it didn't take all of the contaminated water out. To this day, it's still, like I said, the water is. I have a friend of mine that he said he'll wash his clothes in that because he wants to save money, but he said the water is still so strong. It's almost like he's putting starch in his clothes. He said he'll stop doing it. It's just poison.
Oh my goodness.
Mm.
All righty. Dr. Bout says, and I think he's joking with us, having a little fun, but he hopes no one ever lost an eye with those BB guns. We hope not.
Actually, I shot my brother one time in his chin, and that was the last of my BB guns.
Okay.
Well, I do want to give a shout out to Dr. Joe Butte. Charles, he said he would love to assist with the website, and he's provided his email and phone number. And I think he's also provided a lot of good information on the relic, on what the library can do and how they can help people and how it's staffed. It says anonymous attendee, but I think it's him. But anyway, it's a lot of good information on the relic, on what it provides at the Central Library.
I have a lot of it, if not most of it.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
So this gentleman wants to help with the website, if the website can be produced, so we can pass that information along to you.
Please do. Thank you very much.
Yep. All right, Opal, over to you.
All righty. So we've answered the question of where we can see the photos. We've done that. We have another question. What was the date of the article that you referenced? And then I think we're done with our questions.
What article are you talking about?
The very first article that you referenced, I don't know if it was the will.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're 100%
yes,
right.
yes.
Yeah. It was September 3rd, 1810.
Okay. All righty. So we've answered that one. And Dr. Joe Bout has asked again, we will be sending out tomorrow information and a link so that you can get all the information that was presented here today. That will go out tomorrow and you will see the links. All righty. Let's see, did we answer any plans to move the private website to a public site to share this great history and legacy? And I think Charles, you had said that that would be something that you and Judith Bates would have to start to discuss.
Yes,
And I think Dr. Bout is willing to help you do that.
thank you. You want to talk with me.
Okay. And then someone else is saying, and it's Dr. Bout again, that he would love to assist. And we have his phone number and his contact information. So that one has been answered. And the last is that Dr. Bout says, what a great oral history. And thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
All righty. So we have come to the conclusion. And so on behalf of AARP Virginia, I'd really like to again thank our guest speaker, Charles Reid, for sharing his valuable time and knowledge with us this afternoon. I can't tell you how diligent Charles has been in bringing this story to Tuesday Explorers. I'd also like to thank Bill Backus, a historian and preservationist from the Prince William County Historical Center, who provided so much support for this event. Some of you may remember attending 2 weeks ago, one of our Tuesday Explorers, Bill's presentation on Prince William County's own 12 Years a Slave. So the Batestown story really intrigued me from my first conversation with Charles Reid, where he shared with me some of the fascinating history of his ancestors from Batestown. He even allowed me access, as he's mentioned, to his family website, which further solidified my belief that the story of Batestown and its people are another example of not just Black history, but American history and our national treasures. So I'd also like to thank two of my Delta Sigma Theta sorority sisters, Rosalind Thomas, a dear friend and colleague from work, and Yolanda Green, who is the vice chairman of the board of Prince William Historical Association. Both of them pointed me in the direction of Mr. Charles Reid. That community network is real. You just have to ask. And we're so happy that we were able to meet Charles and hope to hear more from him. So we'd love to get your feedback on today's program and ideas for future programs. In the chat box, you'll see a link to a survey. Please click on the link and take a few moments to share your feedback with us. We'll all send this link in a follow-up email later on today. Our Tuesday Explorers programs will continue next week, and we invite you to join us as we take a virtual tour of Black Americans in the National Portrait Gallery. In the chat box, you'll see a link to register for our upcoming programs at www.aarp.org/virtual VA. I'll give you that again. It's www.aarp.org/virtual VA. So until the next time, we encourage you to stay curious and keep exploring. Bye-bye. Take care.